If you're on the hunt for a lightweight laptop these days, the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro is one of the laptops that should be on the radar. Not only is it extremely thin and light, it's packing some serious performance thanks to Intel's 12th generation processors. Of course, the Galaxy Book2 Pro is not alone in disputing the lightweight laptop space, and Apple has a lot to offer with its own MacBook Air. If you're on the fence between these two laptops, we're here to help. Let's take a look at the specs, design, and more to see whether you should choose the MacBook Air or the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro. We've listed the specs for both the 13-inch and 15-inch models of the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro, but we'll be focusing more so on the smaller model. The MacBook Air also has a 13.3-inch display, so that's the comparison that makes the most sense. Just like its predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro is one of the thinnest and lightest laptops on the market. It weighs just 1.92 pounds in the 13-inch model, and it's a mere 11.2 millimeters thin. Despite its name, the MacBook Air is actually not all that light for its size. At 2.8 pounds and measuring 16.1 millimeters in thickness at its thickest point, portability is a clear loss for Apple's lightweight laptop. In the aesthetics department, things are a bit more subjective, but we still say Samsung has a more interesting offering. The Galaxy Book2 Pro comes in two color options, graphite and silver. The graphite model is essentially all black, including a color-matched keyboard, but the silver model is a bit more unique. The exterior is silver, but the interior is white, and the keys are color-matched to the keyboard base. Meanwhile, the MacBook Air comes in three color options, silver, space gray, and gold. These are all very neutral tones, and silver and space gray are essentially just different shades of silver. You might think that the thin and light design of the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro means you get fewer ports, but that's not true either. It has one Thunderbolt 4 port, one regular USB Type-C port, USB Type-A, a headphone jack, and a microSD card reader. The 15-inch model also has an HDMI port. You get a decently varied setup, and Thunderbolt 4 port means you can connect peripherals like displays, external GPUs, and other Thunderbolt accessories. Meanwhile, the MacBook Air only has two Thunderbolt and USB 4 Type-C ports, plus a headphone jack. And, unlike the Samsung laptop, you can't use the Thunderbolt port to connect an external GPU, and only one external display is supported. The Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro supports Wi-Fi 6E, while the MacBook Air only supports Wi-Fi 6, and both support Bluetooth 5. One area where the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro stands out is the display. It's not an especially sharp screen, though Full HD is more than sharp enough for a 13-inch panel. But what really makes it stand out is that it's an AMOLED Full HD display. Most laptops that have OLED displays only do so in their most premium configurations, with 4K resolution or something like that. That means you have to sacrifice battery life, and pay a lot more for the benefits of OLED. Apple's MacBook Air also has advantages though. Most notably, Apple uses a 16:10 aspect ratio for its screen, and that tall format is great for productivity. If you're reading a web page, it requires less scrolling, and apps that have lots of UI elements, like video editing software, can display more of their UI in one screen. The MacBook Air also has a high resolution, at 2560 by 1600, so it looks super sharp at this size. Both laptops offer a single configuration across the board, and they're both great experiences. If you're more into media consumption, you might prefer Samsung's display, while the MacBook Air is better for getting work done. For sound, both laptops offer a stereo speaker setup with two speakers, which is about what you'd expect for a 13-inch laptop. You should get a solid audio experience either way. Setting aside any differences in performance, specs, or design, the biggest factor most users will consider when choosing between these two laptops is the operating system. If you're used to Windows 11, you're going to prefer Samsung's laptop, while the MacBook Air naturally runs macOS Monterey. Windows is the most popular operating system in the world, and it's generally good enough for just about anyone. Whatever use case you have, it's very likely there's an app or feature in Windows that can handle it. On the flip side, macOS is often considered more intuitive for beginners, so it's a good idea for a first laptop. macOS is also popular among media professionals like video editors, thanks to exclusive software like Apple's own Final Cut Pro. When Apple first introduced the MacBook Air and the Apple M1 chipset, it was kind of a big deal because of its balance of performance and power efficiency. The MacBook Air delivered far better performance than Intel's 11th generation processors at the time, and it could last much longer on a charge. However, the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro comes with Intel's 12th generation processors, and from the 28-watt P series at that. These new processors also have a hybrid architecture that mixes performance cores and efficient cores, and they have a much higher core count overall. That should greatly benefit Intel's CPUs. Judging by the benchmark scores, it looks like Intel has caught up and surpassed Apple, at least in terms of multi-core performance. These are early tests of Intel's processors, and they aren't enough to determine an average score yet, but it should give you an idea of what to expect. The new hybrid architecture in Intel's 12th generation processors should also deliver some improvements in terms of battery life, but with a 28-watt TDP, it seems likely that the MacBook Air will still last longer on a charge. As for GPU performance, you can expect the Apple M1 to dominate Intel's Iris Xe graphics. Intel's 12th generation processors don't make any major improvements to the integrated GPU, so Apple's advantage is mostly untouched here. Even the 7-core GPU model should still be faster. The Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro can be had with up to 32 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, which gives it an edge over the 16 gigs of RAM on the Apple M1, so that's one area where Samsung pulls ahead. However, it's worth noting that Apple uses its unified memory technology, which can result in faster RAM speeds compared to traditional RAM on Intel-based PCs. The Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro does beat the MacBook Air in a few ways. For one thing, it's far more portable, being both thinner and lighter, and the design is arguably more interesting. And even with that in mind, you get more ports with it. It also has a nice vibrant display thanks to the AMOLED panel you don't usually see at this price point, making it ideal for media consumption. It also seems to be faster based on early testing of Intel's new processors, and you can get it with more RAM too. Meanwhile, the MacBook Air has a better display for productivity, thanks to the taller aspect ratio and higher resolution. It should also have better battery life, since the ARM-based Apple M1 processor is more efficient, and uses less power than Intel's 28-watt P-series processors. Personally speaking, I'd say the Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro is the better choice, but there are valid reasons to prefer the MacBook Air. What do you think is the best laptop model? Let's discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the devices together in the comments. Also subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day, and see you soon.